one of the things that I talk a lot about as a father is leadership. And there's a couple components to leadership. One is knowing yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your nuanced attitude in certain spaces. And the other part is providing a vision and having goals for your family to include your daughters. And so I'm not going to talk a lot about the leadership perspective from a knowing yourself. I mean, that is something that everybody needs to look in the mirror. They need to reflect on how they were raised and understand what they've learned through life, through their job, through their relationships. I want to focus a little bit more on this concept of having a vision and having an aspiration for your family, particularly your daughters. And I'm going to dovetail, if you're okay, Keith, a little bit into the STEM space as well with some specific stuff that I did from a probably a science and a math perspective with my daughters. And
Okay.
so first off, when you're a young parent, and you're particularly, I say young parent because that means your kids are young, right? We become parents when our kids are born. At a certain point in time, you transition from nurturing them and babying them and getting them to walk and talk to raising them to be adults. And however you define when adulthood is, whether it's when they hit a certain age or they hit a certain achievement, and then however you define the aspirations associated with adulthood. For me, a couple of them was raising a functional independent adult, which means that they're not dysfunctional and they're not dependent. So they can go be good citizens, they can carry on a career, they can pay their bills, and they're not relying on me for the basic necessities of income and making decisions. And that was something that I aspired for my daughters. And therefore I went about when they turned around 5 or 6 to be very deliberate and forthright in raising them to be functional, independent adults. And therefore you have to project where you want them to be and what are things that you can do or need to do between the time they're 6 and the time they turn, let's say, 21. So you have that 15-year period where if you're leading your family and you're leading your daughters, you are doing things to help them become, in this instance, functional and independent. So I believe that's a huge responsibility we have as fathers, as husbands, as leaders in our family.